All right, welcome back to Driven Channel, and I'm really, really excited. It's a special treat for everybody. I love speaking and talking and communicating with women a lot more than men.
Interesting.
So like it excites me. I have 2 daughters. We have another one on the way, so hopefully it's another daughter. She wants a boy. But you know, like first of all, thank you for giving us some time. I'm really excited to get all that value from you to share with our people, and also I need a lot of advice from you how to deal with my wife. So hopefully you can help me with that. I know you're busy, but I want to just jump into it, Lisa.
Yeah.
Everybody knows you. You have a great podcast. We watch it, and I know that you and Tom built an empire, and you guys live a really happy life. And Tom was part of Driven 5. You're gonna be part of Driven 6.
Yeah, buddy.
So I'm really excited for this. So Lisa, thank you for being part of our show.
Oh my God, absolute honor. And then getting to meet your wife, what a freaking awesome woman. So excited.
Yeah, Lisa, so let's start with, I know you guys have no kids.
Yeah, that's right.
And I know you guys work together.
Yeah.
So we work together, but we have a lot of kids. So like, I think that's the biggest difference. So what was there a reason why, or what's the main reason why you guys decided to just start a business? And I know you weren't in the business in the first place, then you jumped in and you became a big part of it.
Yeah.
But what was the decision or the thinking behind we don't want to have kids, or has anything changed, or what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I actually, when I met my husband, I said to him, there are a few things you need to know about me. I'm Greek Orthodox and I want to be married in a Greek church. So he had to get christened. You know, I don't know if you ever saw my Big Fat Greek Wedding, the movie. That literally was our life. So he had to get christened to become Greek Orthodox so we could get married. And I also said I want 4 children. I come from a very big family. My parents come from big families, so I love family. And so when I met him, I kind of just let him know. Now, I had big dreams of being in movies and like being like seriously ambitious. And to cut a very long story short, you may know Tom's story, but we tried to get into the movie industry and we hated it. People were just cruel. It is everything you hear about Hollywood was actually true. And so we said, instead of coming to the world and basically looking to get a job on a movie and then just accepting how you get treated, what if we were to get our own resources and fund it ourselves? Then if we fund our own movies, now we can dictate it and it can be on our terms. So I said, great, how difficult can making money be? Should be fairly easy. There was no word back then for the word entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
But back then, that's basically what we decided. All right, Tom's going to become an entrepreneur. I'm going to stay at home and support him. We called it the Steve Jobs effect. Because if you ever saw an interview with Steve Jobs, right, he always wore black top and jeans. Why? Because you only have a certain amount of decisions that you can make in a day with clarity. So we said, all right, let's divide and conquer. As a team, you're going to go out, you're going to do the business decisions. I'm going to stay home, I'm going to do the family decisions. We're going to do this for a year. We're going to come back together and we're going to make movies. That was the plan. Now, what ended up happening, which maybe your audience can resonate with, is that you say, I'm just going to do this for a little while. I'm just going to sacrifice for a bit. I'm just going to do it for the greater good of my husband, for the greater good of the business, for the greater good of my family. I know a lot of people that have taken care of sick parents, you know, like you have a beautiful intention. But what ends up happening is you develop an identity around that role. So I started to develop an identity of being the good Greek housewife. So even though I didn't want it, even though I was very unhappy, for 8 years, I kept doing it. I didn't speak up. I didn't say that I was unhappy. I didn't say that this wasn't the life I wanted. Because I thought that was where I was going to be. My parents told me you're going to end up being a housewife. You need to take care of your husband. You have to learn how to cook. You have to learn how to clean. When I ended up there, I didn't question it. So now you cut to Tom. He's totally miserable. He decides, him and his business partners, we need to do something predicated on passion. They come up with the idea of a protein bar company.
Yeah.
I'm the good Greek wife as the identity. So I say to my husband, babe, how can I help out? As a good Greek wife, how can I support you? That ended up not turning into the pivot of my life, the pivot of my career. Because what we didn't expect is that Quest would grow at 57,000%.
Wow.
Now, to give you an idea, that takes a business from $0 to $1 billion in 5 years. We were the second fastest growing company in North America. And I literally was just starting out helping my husband. We grew so quickly, it got to a point where I was either going to start doing that full time because I built our shipping department, or I was going to go back to being a stay-at-home wife and someone would take my job because now we could afford it. Quest was doing well.
Yeah.
And that was a pivotal moment that I said to myself, I've given up my life for the greater good. I've never asked myself, am I happy? I've never asked myself, what do I want in life? And so I call it purgatory of the mundane. My life was just mundane enough. I didn't hit rock bottom. It didn't jolt me into action. So I just accepted it. So in this moment, I just have the pivotal moment where I was like, what do I want out of my life? What gives me joy? And it was the first time I really asked myself that. And that was when I realized I love entrepreneurship. Then in the book, I really go over breaking that down on then how did I make the decision to not have children? It was, I've now found something that I'm passionate about, that I love, that I can get up every day, fail at, fall on the floor, like literally like get punched in the face metaphorically, and still excited to get back up and keep going.
Yeah.
And that was all because I love the challenge of entrepreneurship. So I just gave myself the grace to say, what does an average Wednesday look like? Because I think we can all get caught up in having family. We can get caught up in like, at Christmas, we get to spoil the children. When I'm 80, they get to take care of me. You know, like, I don't know what your kids look like, but if they look like one of you, like, honestly, if I had a child, a son, and he looked like Tom, I would melt. Like that little kid with the ears that Tom, like I could literally get excited.
Yeah.
So I understand how we can all convince ourselves that something is a great idea when you look at the big picture. But I knew that I'd already sacrificed, I'd already given so much up without actually taking a hard look of what my life would look like. So I said, I'm never gonna make that same mistake again. And before I have children, I actually need to assess what my life would look like if I had children. And so in going down that path, I played the game, what would an average Wednesday look like?
Yeah.
And then I just created buckets. And the buckets were very honest buckets. It was what would my life look like if I gave up my career and I was full-time as a mother? And then what if my husband died? Like I'm actually asking myself the hard questions. Because now imagine I give up my career. I choose to stay home for the kids and Tom dies. Do I want to be a single parent? Like I'm just asking myself the honest question.
Yeah.
Or the flip side of it. What if I decide not to have children because I love my life, I love my relationship, I love my business, and my husband passes away? Now, let's say I'm 50 years old. It's too late for a woman to actually give birth herself, which is what I was very interested in, like the feel of being pregnant. I've now made the decision to not. So I wanted to make sure that I went into looking at these buckets of having kids with no blinders and asking myself all the hard questions that if this happened, would I regret this decision? Because that ultimately is the biggest thing. I don't want to have regret. Now look, I don't think any of us can guarantee it, but if regret came, at least you can look back and say, I made the decision with my eyes wide open. I understand there's going to be, many scenarios that you're not going to be able to think through, but to me, the biggest fear of deciding not to have children was actually, what if Tom dies? And now would I regret not having kids? Would I feel alone? And so really processing what all that looks like, and then you just make the decision with no judgment. It becomes, what life do you want? Not what life does your parents want, not even what life does your partner want. I literally had to look at it without taking Tom's feelings into account. And then you bring it to your partner and be honest about how you feel. And then you give the space for your partner to do the same. This isn't a defense, like, I can't believe you don't want kids. He never once said that to me. He never once said, but hang on a minute, you told me you wanted 4. He just said, be honest with me about how you're feeling and why.
You imagine and analyze and think about all these different scenarios. Is that, have you always been like that? Like you think, what if this happens? What if that happens? What did kind of
No, and because I lost 8, I feel like it was a lost 8 years. Where I didn't feel like I had the control. I didn't feel like things were my choice. And when at the time after the 8 years, my reasoning was, oh my God, I just blinked and 8 years went by. Now in hindsight, that's utter BS. The truth is, we all make decisions every single day. And those decisions stack up to lead the life that you're living. Now look, I am not saying, obviously there's complete extenuating circumstances that are out of our control. Abuse, losing a job, like there's a lot of things. So I want to make sure that people hear that caveat. But everything else, the decisions I made every single day to not speak up, to not tell my husband I was unhappy, to not make a different decision, to not make a different choice to get myself out of being in that place, that was all on me. And so in hindsight, I'm the person, I try not to beat myself up for past decisions. It doesn't serve me. It just makes me feel worse about myself. So I just look at the past, I look at what happened, and I'm like, amazing. How can I use this as the perfect guide for where I go next? And so for the 8 years where I made a choice to stay where I was, to be in the purgatory of the mundane, now I look back and I go, what are the things I can do differently? And really is setting a goal, being very honest about what that goal looks like, being very honest about what it's going to take to get to that goal, and then making a conscious decision of whether you want to take the steps to get there.
Yeah. So I remember you were part of the the shipping department, right? And
Yeah.
I remember you had a challenge one time that you have to ship Quest bar all the way to Dubai.
Yeah.
And you figured that out. And I know that was probably a big moment for you, right? It was stressful. A lot of people kind of melt when they have a lot of pressure. How can you explain how that moment happened and how did you figure out how to send it over there?
Yeah, absolutely. So no one's going to fight for your dreams more than you will, period. So if you're not willing to fight for them, how on earth can you expect other people to fight for them? You can't. So this situation, it was still early days of Quest. We heard that Justin Bieber, his cousin, loved our bars. And he's like, look, Justin Bieber's going to be on tour. And this is one of those, like, it could change the game of your business, right? You know the power of social media now. This is back in 2014, I want to say. So it's still like no one, I think, quite understood. But I had that feeling, oh my God, if Justin Bieber posts about your product, it's next level. So the marketing guy comes running in, oh my God, we've got potential for Justin Bieber to try our bars. If he likes them, he's going to post about them. His cousin said he's going to be in Dubai. But you've only got like 48 hours. And I don't know if people know about imports, exports, especially when it comes to food. Back then, everyone was like, oh, that's impossible. You can't ship food, you know, within 2 days, especially in Dubai with their restrictions and all of that. And so in that moment, I had an opportunity to either succeed or fail. And that action of me figuring it out had a massive implication. Now, in this moment, it was very much a fear-based motivation, right? Our house literally was up on, like, we put our house up for collateral when we started Quest Nutrition. It was our first little house, and so we would have lost the house if Quest went
How much was
under.
the house worth back then?
Oh, God.
More or less.
I don't want to throw out a number in case I'm wrong. It's like, I'm not very good with that, but $500,000 at the time, 600 maybe.
That's kind of important because most people, when they start, they don't realize how you guys started and what the most valuable thing you had was worth $500K as opposed to like the life you live here. So people look at the life now, but they don't realize the start.
Yes, thank you. To give people an idea, when we started Quest, we basically we downsized everything because we put everything into the company. So we shared an old Ford Focus that had a hole in the exhaust and the steering wheel would rattle if you go over 60 miles an hour. And I remember, I even write about it in my book, where you go, we would look for motivation, those moments where you feel bad about yourself. There's moments where you're like, what the hell am I doing, right? The reality sinks in. You're in a hairnet, it's a Saturday night, all your friends are out partying, enjoying their life, and here you are in sweats, not feeling great, and your business is struggling, right? Not struggling, but there's always problems. And so in those moments, how do you motivate yourself, right? So there's different types of motivation. In this Justin Bieber moment, it was the fear-based motivation, because it's like, well, Lisa, you don't have to do it, but if you don't do it and the company ends up failing, you lose your house. So let me actually figure it out. And so when I say figure it out, it wasn't I realized that I was smart, that I could do it. It was more just like, oh crap, you got to figure it out. And so it started from ask questions. And so I picked up the phone, I picked up, UPS guy, how do I ship a bar? And their answer was, you can't. So again, I go back to no one's going to fight for your dreams more than you will. So I realized, well, he's not going to help. Let me speak to your manager. I get on the phone to the manager. How can I ship? He goes, you can't. And I was like, oh, well, hang on. I'm just making his life more difficult. No one's going to fight for your dreams more than you will. Well, how the hell can I figure out if I can or not? I'm just going to go online. What are the import rules in Dubai? How do I get, literally, I was like Googling it. And then it became, oh, here are all these forms. I don't freaking know what these forms are. Let me just fill it out. Take one question at a time. Because you can look at immigration, import forms and be like, what the hell? I don't know what this means. Just one question at a time. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't have the blind confidence. That's why I wrote my book. It's called Radical Confidence. I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew I had the confidence to figure it out. That when I hit a roadblock, I'm just going to keep asking questions. So that's what I ended up doing. The beauty of this story is I ended up getting the bars to Justin Bieber on time. They got to Dubai. They got there in time. He didn't post a photo of, so I swear to you, I will get that picture with Justin in the bar.
Yeah.
But the lesson that I learned was no one's going to fight for your dream. Multiple people with more experience than me, experts, right? It's their job to know. It's not my job to know, it's theirs. They told me it couldn't be done, and yet someone with zero experience but was just bullish enough to push through the challenge figured it out. That was the biggest lesson. And then the motivation piece is the fear-based, that's that, or the emotionally based motivation, right? Where how do you align yourself to a mission, to a purpose? And that was the evolution of where I went from with the Justin Bieber story to realize it's not sustainable. I don't want to live my entire life just in fear of losing my house and losing, our belongings. What is that motivation that can keep me going even when I'm failing? And it ended up being impact. And so that.
And Lisa, let's talk a little bit about your book, Radical Confidence. So that the cover itself explains what you're all about. Like, you're super confident, powerful woman. You remind me a lot of my wife. My wife's just like that, and my wife's like super strong and she's like that, like a hammer. And sometimes like other women can't take it, including men. But because she's so strong, and like what you said, that just kind of sticks out is that nobody wants to win more than you want to win. Nobody wants to fight for your dreams more than you want to fight for your dreams.
Yeah.
And you need a lot of confidence because some of those dreams might be really big and it gets tough at points. And sometimes, and I know you've been through a lot too. I know a lot of your stories and that what you went through. How are you ever? Are you emotional or do you ever get a little weak at all? Because you seem like a really strong woman, like that nothing breaks you.
I love this question because this is exactly why I wrote the book. Because people would say to me, Lisa, you look so confident. Like, how do you get your confidence, right? Like, how do you get your confidence? Like, people ask me a lot. And I swear to God, I was like, who are they talking to?
Yeah.
There's no way they're talking to me. Like, literally, there's no way. Because if you heard how negative the voice is in my head, how badly I feel about myself sometimes, how incompetent I feel 50% of the time, there's no exaggeration. I feel incompetent 50% of my life. But I show up anyway. And so that was part of like, okay, how can I explain this? Because I think one of my favorite quotes of all time, do you know Lisa Nichols? The motivational speaker. She's amazing.
I heard about her, yeah.
So Lisa Nichols, I heard a speech from her one time, and she said, do not make me extraordinary to let yourself off the hook. It meant I was looking at Lisa and I literally was like, oh my God, she's so amazing. Lisa Nichols is a genius. She's so motivating. There's no way I can do it. And as I'm sitting there saying, there's no way I can do it, she says this quote. Now, what it's doing is I'm making her seem extraordinary by going, well, it's her. I can't do that. Yeah. And that's my biggest fear, that people see me and go, oh, well, Lisa has the confidence. I can't do that. And the thing I wanted to write about in the book is you're misreading the situation. You see me show up. You see me get in front of the camera. You see me put one foot in front of the other. You see me own my failures, and you think it's confidence. It's not. It's radical confidence. It's the fact that I'm actually scared shitless.
Wow.
But I figure out how to do it. And how do I do it? I come up with a game plan. I come up with a blueprint. Because back to your question, I'm emotional a lot. My voice in my head is negative a lot. I was teased and I was bullied as a kid. So I don't believe in myself. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe in what I was capable of. And so every time I face something, you see me do it, but it's not out of confidence. It was, okay, in moments of struggle, in moments of challenge, what am I going to do to overcome it? And I need a blueprint, because in those moments, my feelings feel very real. My feelings definitely feel like you are incompetent to do this, Lisa. Take my book. The very first thing, a literary agent reached out to Tom. That perfect example. Literary agent reached out to Tom and said to Tom, would Lisa be interested in writing a book? So Tom comes to me, he's all excited, he's like, babe, I can't believe it, someone wants you to write a book. I'm sitting on my computer, I'm like, oh, that's nice. And I go back to working. And he's like, babe, I can't believe you're being so nonchalant about this. What, why are you being so nonchalant? And I was like, it's very kind, but who would buy a book from me? That was actually the words that came out of my mouth because I thought there's no way you're good enough that anyone would ever spend money on buying a book from you, Lisa. That's my internal dialogue. That was automatic. I didn't even think about it. It just came out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. Now, who you see today is the person that turns around to that negative voice and goes, oh, the 14-year-old insecure Lisa is still there. Okay, what is she trying to tell you? And I have a whole chapter in my book called Making the Bitch in Your Head Your BFF. Like the mean voice in your head. How do you make it your best friend? And so to me, it's about listening to her. So when she's saying, don't write a book, Lisa, no one's going to buy it, what she's really saying is, Lisa, you don't know how to write a book and you're going to embarrass yourself. So I listen to her and I go, okay, homie, I call my negative voice my homie. All right, homie, so how do I get good? She's like, you better learn how to write a book. And so I was like, that's amazing. I took the critic in my head and now I've made her my coach. She's telling me, learn how to write a book. So what that did is it gave me a blueprint, right, of how I'm going to learn how to write a book. And now I'm not letting that negative voice, back to what you were saying about do you get emotional, that emotional voice in my head that's trying to protect me, I don't let it overtake me because I've written out a game plan of how I'm going to learn how to write a book. And I just write the steps. So every day I wake up, I don't feel good enough, but I do the step anyway. And that's what I literally break down.
You feel like that little voice, your homie, you think that's your drive that keeps you like with that growth mindset and so strong personality? And just a follow-up question to that. Do you ever throw people off or hurt people's feelings, or whether it's women or men, because you're just so focused on being such a badass that other people, or maybe little bitches, they get kind of shaken and they're like, oh, Lisa's too harsh, too hard?
Yes and no. So repeat your first question.
Your drive.
Thank you.
Your homie voice, is that your drive?
I think I think the negative voice that we all have in our head, I think it's our ego. And our ego is trying to protect us because our ego doesn't want us to feel badly. And so now when you try something new, if you fail, your ego gets dented, right? And now you feel badly about yourself. So your ego is saying, don't do it. Don't do it. We're going to feel badly about ourselves. So the ego is just trying to protect itself. So that's how I see it, because I used to be like, this bitch won't shut up. Like, it's holding me back. Why is she so negative? And it would really not serve me. So I'm like, how can I pivot? How can I think about this voice in my head as something different? And so by thinking about it as this wounded child, the ego that's just trying to feel okay, now I actually don't judge it. I'm like, oh, it's okay. What are you worried about? I'm worried you're going to mess up. All right, how am I going to mess up? Well, you don't know what you're doing. Okay, well, maybe you're right. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing. So how can I learn so that I do know what I'm doing? Right? So it becomes this almost like this child that I kind of coach myself through and don't let it hold me back. So that's kind of the first piece. The second piece on the confidence is 1,000%. And it caught me off guard because I have had such a negative mindset. I've not been the person that, if you could see me at 14, you would never have asked me, Lisa, where'd you get your confidence from? You'd be like, someone please help this poor girl because she's so insecure. So when I go from being that person that felt badly about myself and worked freaking hard every day on how do I get better? How do I step into my own? How do I get my power back? How do I take ownership? How do I become a badass? How can I be a confident woman? It's a struggle. It's a constant practice. And one day, I'm not going to say who, but one day I was out with a friend who I think of being is incredibly confident. And we were out and I said something like, I was just like, oh no, I want to do this. Because I think I'm always asking, like, what do you want to do? Don't think about my feelings. Just tell me what you want to do. And that's how I function. I'm like, be honest. I'm not a softie. You don't have to worry about my emotions. Tell me what you want. I'm going to tell you what I want. And now at least we're honest. And now we'll take what we both want and figure out a happy medium. That's just how I function. And so I'm now confident enough to be honest about what I want.
Yeah.
And so in this exchange of a conversation, I was very honest. I was like, oh no, I don't really want to do that. I want to do this. And so I said, what do you want? She's like, wow, you're being very forceful. And I was like, I'm being forceful? It's like, yeah, it's coming across arrogant. I was like, what? And it knocked me for 6 because I'm the person that I was so not confident, not arrogant, that becoming proud of who I was is now being perceived as a negative.
Yeah.
That really stopped me. And I was like, all right, instead of just being emotionally back, like having an emotional response, I need to pause and I need to take this in. And I need to understand why someone is perceiving me like this. Because once upon a time, my ego would have said, they're ridiculous. That's on them. They're imagining it, right?
Yeah.
And they're just dismissing them. But now, in my growth, I need to say, is there truth to this? Has my confidence now become arrogance? I just had to ask no judgment on myself, because if it has, now at least I know I don't want to be arrogant. So I have to learn to not be arrogant. But I have to ask the question. So I just said, is this true? And my answer truthfully felt like, no, it wasn't arrogance. It was just, I delivered it with confidence. And then I tried to see it from their perspective. So why did they perceive it as arrogance? What has happened in their life where someone can be honest and it's perceived in that way? So then I started to try and give her the grace and the space to be like, I'm so sorry, that obviously wasn't my intention. Why do you think that? And it gave me room to talk to her through it. And then that helped me understand other women and other women's insecurities and how I may trigger other people. And so I think of that as being an important lesson for me. And so I'm just learning, even just now, of like, okay, well, I don't want to be a trigger for people.
Yeah.
I don't think it's my ownership over someone else's trigger.
Yeah.
But I think if there's someone that I care about, I need to be sensitive to those triggers. So the truth is that if it's a stranger and they're cruel, I won't listen to them. If it's someone I care about, I'm absolutely going to give them space to explain it. But either scenario, I'm going to really take it in and assess whether I think there's any truth to it or not. And if there's not, I'm going to try and change maybe the language that I can use to help that person actually also be a badass, also be confident. Like that's the goal, is that not to like push people away. So if someone was like, oh my God, you're so fucking confident and you're really, upsetting, or you're really doing this and what do you know? I'm like, oh my God, like if that comes across to you, I'm so sad. I hope you can find confidence in a way that I found it, right? And then I'll try and show grace to them.
Yeah.
But I think being dismissive to them won't solve it. Going back to goals and how I orient myself, my goal is helping other women gain confidence. And so if I just push them back, if I just dismiss them as being a bitch, as being a hater, that also doesn't help or serve my mission or my goal. So I think listening to them, but not taking it in personally, are the two key things.
So when you're helping a woman or coaching a woman, and the woman is so strong personality and she's just like, do it anyways, I don't care about your feelings, or it's your job, and just because people, they'll drop the ball, and it gets to a point where like when you're helping people like that, or what is the way you approach it with a bunch of different personalities? Like, speaking of, well, I don't know if it's both women or men, but speaking about women, do you communicate with each woman differently, of the ones that you coach and help, or are you very transparent? Because on your YouTube podcast, I like the way you're transparent and how you just speak yourself. It seems like, because I used to always try to say things that I thought would please everybody, and everybody would be okay with it and happy about what I'm saying, but then people still didn't like me sometimes. Yeah. And then I said, well, I'm just going to be myself, because people won't like me anyways. So then when I was myself, I started liking myself more. And people still didn't like me, but it was the same thing. But the other way, I was miserable because I was trying to be somebody I wasn't, and then people still weren't liking me. Yeah. So when you help a woman, are you careful with the way you talk to them? Do you talk to them differently? Or are you just the same Lisa with all of them, and they take it or leave it?
So it's an interesting dynamic where these become like certain nuances, I think, And what I mean by that is I'm always going to be myself. So I'm never going to give anyone false advice. I'm never going to say anything that doesn't actually ring true to me or that's something I have an expertise in. Like sometimes I get asked a question and I'll be like, I really can't answer that. Like, for instance, someone will say to me, well, what do you do if you're on a date and it's on the... And I'm just like, if you're talking about online dating in a very specific way, in this day and age, I've been married for 20 years. So literally, I'm just like, I'm so sorry I can't answer that question because anything I tell you, I don't know if it's accurate.
Yeah.
But I can tell you what I think I would do. So that's kind of how I approach things. But I also am, again, because I'm so goal-oriented, I say, okay, if someone asks me a question, and let's say there's multiple women. There's someone who's quite sensitive. There's someone that's an introvert. There's someone that's an extrovert.
Exactly.
Right, have these different personalities. Let's say they all ask the same question. I may very well answer it differently depending on the person. But it's all going to be accurate truth to Lisa Bilyeu. It's just, I know my goal is to actually impact them. So if I go up to an introvert that's shy, and I'm like, come on, motherfucker, you got this shit. They're gonna freaking run. Like they are literally going to be like, oh my God, Lisa's too intense, I can't take it. And now have I reached my goal? Yes or no? No. So with someone like that I see as an introvert, I'm gonna be like, homie, I know you're struggling right now. And I know right now you probably don't believe in yourself, but I believe in you. I really feel like you've got this. Right? It's a different delivery mechanism.
Exactly.
But the message is still the same. Because I know what my goal is. So I'm still myself. I'm still very authentic. I'm never going to give fake advice. I'm never going to give something that isn't true. But I understand that I want to impact both of them. I want to impact the introvert and the extrovert. But coming at them in the same way actually might not resonate. There are some people where I've just got to be freaking hard and I've got to be up in their face. I'm like, homie, don't you accept that excuse? And they'll be like, thank you, Lisa, I needed that.
I need that,
But other people, they'll just run. So it's kind of knowing how you show up and where that line is of what feels authentic to you.
Awesome, Lisa. So never change who you are because I love who you are. I love the transparency and you being you. You're amazing. To close out really quick, just two little quick questions. Number one is your life today is different than when you started. You had the home that you got a loan from. Now you have an unbelievable life full of wealth and you're still with Tom. So that's incredible. How is your life today different than before in the sense of the stress, the pressure, and how much you want to improve and how much more you want in life? Like, what's the biggest difference between them?
I think now, there's just obviously when you don't have to worry about if you're going to be able to pay an electricity bill, right? That it is a very different ball game in that sense. It does allow me to do content where I'm like, this is authentically me. And so if someone says, yes, but you have to do this, I'm just like, no, I don't have to do anything. I'd rather stop doing my show if I wasn't impacting people than being forced to do a show because of, but you have to pay your bill. So like there is that difference for me to be able to lean into my authenticity more. But just to hopefully the story actually will give you a very strong idea of who Tom and I are as a people. We have that car, Ford Focus, hole in the exhaust, the steering wheel rattles over 60 miles an hour. In days when we were struggling, on Saturday nights where we were like, what the hell are we doing with our lives? We would drive around Beverly Hills and we'd be like, one day we'll have the house.
We used to do the same thing.
Exactly. Right. You just kind of go around and it's like, oh, and we would argue. He'd be like, I like the house. I'm like, I hate that style. Just, because I like to embody an emotion that I'm trying to create. So I would literally feel like I was about to buy the house to feel the emotion. And so flash forward, company does amazingly well. We sell a very small portion of the company. Now, the very small portion is life-changing. It comes with a lot of zeros. And so Tom and I are in our makeshift garage gym, and we hear rumors that today's going to be the day. Like the money's going to hit the bank account. So you go from, your life is exactly the same. Since you started the company, even though on paper it's worth a lot, nothing changes. Every penny we made, we put back into the company. So even though the company ended up being worth a lot of money, our life was exactly the same. We lived our same lifestyle, we didn't buy another car, nothing. Then this day comes, you're pressing refresh on the phone, on your bank account, because you hear the money's gonna hit. Refresh, rep, refresh, rep, refresh. All of a sudden your life changes. Literally like that. There's a lot of zeros now in your bank account. Your life changes. We take a couple of selfies, we gave each other a kiss, and then we got changed and went back to Quest and did a full days of work.
Wow.
And no one knew. We didn't take the day off. I told my family on the way into work, but no one at Quest would have known. We financially were extremely different from the day before to that day. Why? Because we were so predicated on showing up every day for our purpose and our mission. So no matter how many zeros we have in our bank account, we had already done the internal work before we got financially wealthy of what we were doing every day. At Quest, we were waking up every day, Tom to help his mum and his sister who were morbidly obese, and my mum who was borderline anorexic growing up. So every day, I knew who I was helping. And so no matter how much money I had in my bank account, that didn't change me showing up every day and helping people. So hopefully that gives you an idea.
That's awesome. You gave me a lot more. And the one final thing, Lisa, one story or something that nobody knows about you that you never shared with anybody else in the podcast?
Ooh. Well, the biggest story I wrote in my book that I hadn't shared, I didn't tell anyone. I went from telling my husband and my sister my entire life. I held it as the worst story of my life. That when it happened, I said, I'm never going to tell a soul. I'm going to bury this in the desert. No one's ever going to hear this story because it is so embarrassing. And then I decided, screw it. This is the story I need to tell and put in my book because I need people to hear how badly you can feel shame, embarrassment, every word under the sun throw in and use it for motivation. And so I share a story in the book. I don't know how much you want me to say it now, but it is a very, very embarrassing story. And not many people bring it up in interviews. And I'm always curious. I'm like, are they embarrassed? Or do they think I'm going to be embarrassed to talk about it?
Yeah. Awesome. So I'll put the link to your book.
Amazing.
And thank you for being such a brave woman, helping a lot of people, changing a lot of lives. And what's your favorite place for people to follow you?
Thank you. Yes. Follow me at Lisa Bilyeu on Instagram, or you can follow my show, Women of Impact, on YouTube.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. Yeah, buddy.